and amen. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Happy Sabbath. It is now the 7th of June. It's half of the year is already gone. And this afternoon, we will be looking at obesity. Obesity. Just let me get my slideshow up. All right, so we're looking at obesity this afternoon. And if you look in the world today, especially in the Western world, in the developed countries, we'll find that this is a major issue. And even in Jamaica, more and more so, you can see the battle of the bulge is going on, real, real hot. So let's look into it this afternoon. First, everyone should know this definition of disease. As medical missionaries, as believers, as Seventh-day Adventists, we believe that disease is an effort of nature to free the system from conditions that result from the violations of the laws of health. This is the true cause of all disease, violations of God's law of health, the physical laws that govern our body. And what are these laws? What are the laws of health? They are pure air, sunlight, abstemiousness, otherwise known as temperance, rest, exercise, proper diet, the use of water, trust in divine power. These are the true remedies. These are God's 8 doctors by which we can recover from all disease. We can have perfect health if we are obedient to God's laws that govern the physical being. Now, as we're talking about obesity, let us look at a few cases of persons who were struggling with this particular disease and how they were able to gain the victory. We're looking at Quinton Fletcher, who lost 95 pounds, right? That's a whole child, a whole preteen in 6 months. How did he do it? By power walking 7 days a week for at least an hour. So that is the law of exercise. Working in the yard, often walking 18 holes of golf 2 or 3 times a week, eating a balanced total vegetarian diet on a schedule in the proper order, weighing in once a week. So just by being obedient to the laws of health, he was able to restore his body weight to something that's a bit more healthy. I know that in the States, there is a new fad going on, a new trend. And there's this new drug, the latest drug in a long line of uh weight control drugs. I can't remember the pronunciation. I think the name Opimezec or something like Op Opzec. I don't know. It is something similar to that. All the rage is going on, right? People are turning to drugs to try and lose and to control their weight rather than exercising the laws of health that God has given us, right? So these don't fall prey to, the marketing campaigns offering a pill for every ill, a pill to help you cut weight or even surgery. No, not at all. We need to go to God's methods. But what is obesity? Obesity is abnormal or excessive fat accumulation that may impair health. So it's not just a little bit of chubby. We are now talking about when the amount of weight, excess weight that you have on is now impacting your health and starting to, cause other disease mechanisms to activate in your body, right? And it is now officially been labeled a disease, right? The new designation informed 78 million American adults and 12 million American children that they have a condition requiring medical treatment. And this is as of June 18, 2023, where it is now has its own designation as a disease by the American Medical Association, the AMA. Now, obesity is now so serious that it is now the fifth leading risk for global deaths, right? So the fifth leading risk factor for all deaths globally, right? Worldwide, 2.8 million adults die each year as a result of being overweight or obese. Now, the research from the source Health Power has found that every extra pound shaves off about 1 month off of your lifespan. Imagine that. Every pound equals 1 month off of your lifespan. Now imagine 660 extra pounds. You could be losing 5 years off of your life. I don't know about you, but I sure know about me. I have no extra time to give to nobody. I want to live as long as God desires for me to live. All right. Now, what are some of the symptoms of obesity? It can cause breathlessness. The slightest exertion, you're out of breath. Increased sweating, snoring, aka, you can also have sleep apnea, which causes difficulty sleeping, inability to cope with sudden physical activity, feeling very tired, that fatigue every day, back and joint pains because of the extra weight, bearing down on the structures that were never designed by God to be holding up this excessive amount of weight, especially on the knees and the ankles, you know, all that excessive weight, not good. So those are some of the symptoms of obesity. Now, what about the risk factors that that obesity drives? Once you're obese, you're at very high risk of having diabetes, heart disease, and I want to expand that, not just heart disease, but cardiovascular disease. So, everything dealing with your circulatory system can be impacted by you being overweight. It can cause acid reflux uh, disease, right? And that can be very uncomfortable. People who suffer from this can tell you it's a really not nice thing to have. High blood pressure. Did you know that? Being overweight can help to cause you to develop high blood pressure, right? Cancer. There's forms of cancer. You have also sleep apnea and many other drivers, many other diseases that can be driven by obesity, right? But what is the mechanism really? According to WHO, overweight and obesity leads to adverse metabolic effects on blood pressure, cholesterol, triglycerides, insulin resistance, risk of coronary heart disease, uh, ischemic stroke, type 2 diabetes. All those risks increase steadily with rising body mass index. And I want you guys to really understand how this works. What we are told is that we need to understand the true cause of disease. So I want to go a little bit deeper for this slide, and you need to take some notes. Now, how it works is that when people are obese, there is an imbalance in their intake of calories and their output, right? So you're eating way more than what your body needs. And the body begins to store that as fat. But usually people who are eating way more than what they need, that means that they're intemperate. And usually they have a sedentary lifestyle. So their body doesn't need that lot of energy anyway, right? They have a improper diet. They tend to drink a lot of sugary drinks. So you can see that they're pretty much violating every law of health at a fundamental level. But what happens in the body is that all this food, all this, sugar and stuff like that needs to be absorbed by the body, right? Your body breaks down carbohydrates into sugar, uh, and that sugar cannot be floating around in your blood. You know, it will cause you to die, basically. So the body secretes a hormone, insulin, from the pancreas that basically orders the cells in your body to take in that excess sugar, right? And your body's and your liver is also working overtime to try and convert some of that sugar into glycogen. That also happens in the muscles, but that is a secondary means for the body to handle sugar. The primary way the body tries to handle sugar is by ordering it to go into cells under the influence of the hormone insulin. So when the body detects these elevated levels of sugars in the blood, right, it starts to pump out insulin. The more sugar you eat, the more insulin the body pumps out. And what happens is that you reach a state where there is an abnormally high concentration, unnaturally high concentration of insulin in the blood consistently. Because people who are overweight not only tend to eat the wrong types of food, they also not only eat too much at one sitting, they have multiple sittings for the day. They are coming just like Betsy the cow down there, always chewing their cud, always eating. Every couple of minutes, they need to snack on something. Every couple hours or so, they need to eat more food. And this can cause a very negative, positive feedback loop. Negative in terms of the effect, but positive feedback loop, meaning that this bad habit builds onto its own self. The more you overeat and inflame this system, instead of feeling full, guess what? You actually feel hungrier and to cause you to eat more. And the more you abuse the system, it is the more intemperate you become. It is the more you are driven to eat and eat of the wrong kinds of food, right? You ever wonder, you see these people can push down 3, 4 pizzas in one sitting and then drink a gallon of juice, and in half hour they're hungry again, so they open up a tremendous gigantuan bag of chips and they deal with that chips and look again, they're at it again consistently. Yeah. So that intemperance causes the system to become fevered and the digestive organs to become inflamed, and it causes to actually cry out for more, 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 more. More is never enough. Henceforth, you see these humongous sized adults and children who are suffering from overweight and obesity when it gets to the morbid end of the scale. But going back to the mechanism underlining these disease processes, is that after a while, where your blood has these very high elevated levels of insulin, trying to force the cells to open up and to take in the sugar. Because remember, insulin acts as like a key, right? So your cells have doors through which sugar must come in. Insulin acts as a key to open those doors so the sugar can come in. After a while, the cells are so jam-packed of sugar, it's like they just like, listen, room full, hall full, can't take a spoonful. And they no longer want to listen to the knocking of insulin to say, telling the cell to open the door, I'm stuffing more sugar. After a while, the cell just listen. Enough is enough. We're not listening to you, insulin, anymore. What does the body do? It continues to detect high levels of sugar in the blood. So it tells the pancreas, listen, turn up the insulin more. Turn it up more and more and more and more, and the body just keeps on cranking out more and more insulin, trying to force the cells to take in more and more sugar. So effectively what happens is that the cells in your body loses its sensitivity to insulin. It no longer wants to listen to insulin. In other words, insulin no longer works as effectively, right? In terms of ordering the cells to take up the sugar from out of the blood. This condition is called insulin resistance. meaning the body is resisting the effect of insulin. It's no longer listening to the commands of insulin. And insulin resistance drives another disease process that is called metabolic syndrome. Metabolic syndrome. And that metabolic syndrome now drives all those diseases that we just discussed. Metabolic syndrome drives the cancer. It drives the high blood pressure. It drives the diabetes. It drives, the coronary heart disease and the high cholesterol, and the list goes on and on and on. Well over 80%. I don't remember the exact, but it's a very high number. Could be 90 odd percent of diseases are linked back to insulin resistance, right? And metabolic syndrome. Even some of these female diseases, fibroids and polycystic ovarian syndrome and hormonal imbalances, and the list goes on and on and on. All it comes back right down to metabolic syndrome, insulin resistance linked to your lifestyle. Let's continue now with the presentation. So with that explanation, you now understand how it is now that obesity now increases your risk of esophagus cancer, pancreatic cancer, colon and rectum cancer. And you realize that all of these organs that we just, those top three are part of the digestive system, right? These are your digestive organs, right? But it also can lead to prostate cancer, breast cancer after menopause, endometrium, that's a line of the uterus, right? So uh, the cancer of the endometrium, kidney and gallbladder cancer, thyroid cancer, and the list goes on. Now, obesity can impact more than just your physical health. It can also impact your mental health and cause various psychological problems, low self-esteem, especially in the westernized world where looks are unfortunately at so high a value, where the messaging that is sent out by the mass media is that you need to be real thin with high cheekbones, and the list goes on. And when you compare yourself to that messaging, it will lead to feelings that you are inferior to that which is desired. So you start to have low self-esteem. Your confidence is completely destroyed. You can fall into depression and actually feel isolated from society, right? And we know that this is not on God's order, right? So these can really lead to really severe mental, psychological, emotional problems, okay? As little as 10 to 15 pounds of extra weight can lay the foundation for many of today's degenerative diseases. And that is now beyond a shadow of a doubt. That has been proven true by much research. Now, there are two types of obesity. There is peripheral obesity, and that is the accumulation of excess fat in the buttocks, hips, and thighs, and that tends to affect our women more than men, right? And then you have central obesity, which is the accumulation of fat in the abdominal area, also known as pear obesity or apple obesity. But people can have a combination of both. Recently, I saw a video of a woman. She thought she was looking good and she was feeling good, and she had, not maga arms, but okay, regular looking arms and chest, and even around the belly area. But when it came down to her buttocks and her thighs and her legs, man, you have to wonder if it's a cartoon character, right? That would be more the peripheral type. And then you have some who their legs are skinny and their butts are skinny and their arms are skinny, but they have this huge middle section, right? That is central. But a lot of times you see people with both. All right. So you can have peripheral, central, or a combination of both types of obesity. I just want to confirm. Michelle, can you hear me? My computer is not showing a response with my microphone. Can you confirm? Can you hear me, please?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, good. So I can ignore that error then. All right, good. Moving on. So now we're going to be talking about the body mass index, right? The BMI. Most times when you go to your doctor, they will measure you and they will refer to, your BMI and look at some chart to try and see where you are along the scale. The BMI is a measure of body fat based on height and weight that applies to adult men and women. And what we do is that we use this index to classify you into weight categories that will indicate whether you have a healthy weight, whether you're overweight, whether you're obese or at high risk for obesity. And it also can indicate if you're underweight, right? Because remember, we recommend balance. It can't be too fat, but it can't be too skinny either. And the BMI index, right, or the body mass index is a method by which we can categorize you, right? So using this information, if your body mass index is calculated to be between 18.5 and 14.9, you have a healthy weight, right? A BMI of 25 to 29.9, overweight. 30 or higher, you are either obese or at very high risk of becoming obese. Now let us look at somebody. How is the body mass index calculated? And the formula is that it should be your weight divided by your height, your weight in kilograms. Let me be specific. Your weight in kilograms divided by your height in meters squared. So, for example, you weigh 68 kilograms. That's roughly like 150 pounds around there, right? And you had a height of 165 centimeters. That is 1.64 meters when you convert from the centimeters to meters, right? Because every 100 centimeters is a meter. So therefore, to calculate it, you have to divide 68. Friends, could you hold on 1 second, please? Sorry about that, guys. Right. So when you do that calculation now, your weight in kilograms would be the 68 divided by your height, which is the 1.65 meters. But you have to square that meter first, right? So you square it. So it would be 68 divided by 1.65 squared, and that equals to 24.98. So that would be your body mass index, which is going to be 24.98. And if you look back at the previous slide, 24.98 would put us in the category of what? Just slightly at the top of your healthy weight. All right? But you don't reach 25 yet. So you're right on the border of being overweight. All right? And of course, if we did it over here in uh, in pounds and feet, you would have to multiply your result by 703, which will be giving you right back to the 64.98 roughly. Now, what about your ideal weight calculation? For men, allows 100 libs for 5 foot of height. For every additional inch going over 5 feet, you are allowed an additional 6 pounds. Therefore, for example, the ideal weight for a man who is 5 feet 10 inches. So you have the 5 foot, which is 100 pounds, and then the 10 inches over that 5 feet, 6 pounds for every additional inch. So that will be 10 times 6, which give you 60. So the 100 plus 60 will give you 160 pounds. All right. Ideal weight for women allows for 106 pounds for every 5 feet of height. And for every additional inch, females are allowed an additional 5 pounds. So therefore, the ideal weight for a woman, 5 foot 4 inches, is going to be 126 pounds. Now, the causes of obesity. Obesity is an imbalance between the calories taken in and those utilized. And of course, your calories come into you from the food that you eat, and you utilize calories passively. Firstly, passively by the various life processes that requires energy, but then also we exercise and the work that we do, right? Those burn calories. So when there is an imbalance, you're taking in more than you use, you develop excessive body weight that can rise to the level of obesity. Now, what does the body do with the excessive calories? What it does is that they turn them into fatty deposits. Everybody has fat cells, the adipose tissues of the body, and these cells can grow exponentially. So when there is excess calories, these adipose tissues will take in that as fat deposits and grow those fat cells. All right, thereby increasing your body weight. Another cause of obesity can be lack of sleep. Getting less than 7 hours of sleep at night can cause changes in hormones that increase your ghrelin imbalance, increasing your appetite, causing you to eat more. You may crave foods high in calories and carbohydrates, which can contribute to weight gain. Sleep-deprived people showed greater desire for unhealthful, high-calorie foods, rating these foods more highly than when they were rested. I wonder if somebody want to give me a good reason why this is so. Can anybody want to take a try at why when you're sleep deprived, you tend to want these high-calorie intake foods? Let me see if there's any hands. No hands. Okay, we can discuss at the end of the presentation. Their desire for junk food increased along with the severity of their sleep deprivation. The more sleep deprived people were, the more they wanted junk food. Leptin resistance. That's another cause, leptin resistance. What is leptin? Leptin is a hormone that releases fat cells in your body while you're eating, which sends a powerful message to the brain saying, stop eating, you are full now. All right. So that's what leptin does. Once your body has, sense that you have had enough to eat for its needs, it will release leptin into the bloodstream and it will tell you, okay, you're now full, leave that alone. People can actually develop a resistance to that hormone. Erratic fluctuations of leptin and the hormone ghrelin, which makes you feel hungry. So ghrelin makes you feel hungry, leptin makes you feel full, complicate your ability to lose weight and triggers intense hunger. So that's a hormonal imbalance issue. Study shows that the production of both leptin and ghrelin may be influenced by how much or how little we sleep. So that is the answer. So the sleep, when you're sleep deprived, it messes with the balance of the hormones leptin and ghrelin, which influences how you respond when you eat, that feeling of being full, that's leptin, and ghrelin, which is what indicates that you are hungry. Those hormones become imbalanced when you're sleep deprived. Another cause is overeating. And this is to the point of feeling uncomfortably full or bloated. So that is when, for those of you who live in the United States and you go to the Thanksgiving feast and you try to eat out of every single dish on the table until you have to pull the pants buckle and loosen the belt and lay down halfway across the couch and you're like, oh my goodness, I'm full. Yep, that's overeating. And for those of you who like to go to potlucks, for example, Sabbath potlucks, you want to try everything, overeating, right? This is another cause of obesity. Regular, repeated, habitual overeating, right? And overeating consistently can also dull the effect of leptin on the mind because, if you continue to eat when your body is telling you, leptin is telling you, say, hey, I'm full, we are good, you can stop now. And you're like, hey, no, I still want to eat um that veggie burger over there, and you continue. After a while, you will lose, that ability to hear the influence of leptin telling you to stop. Another cause is fat cells metabolism. So these adipose tissue, these fat cells, can be produced anytime when existing fat cells reach about 85% of their holding capacity. So once the cell begins to see that, it's getting to its capacity, it will call for the production of more fat cells, more adipose tissues. A fat cell is capable of storing so much fat it can expand up to 1,000 times its initial volume. Can you imagine that? A cell can expand up to the whole of 1,000 times its initial volume. That's its size we are talking about. Another cause for obesity is the lack of sunlight. This study here done by Robert Graham at Lenox Hill Hospital found that in a group of 571 women who gained weight, those who had insufficient vitamin D levels gained about 2 pounds more than women who had sufficient vitamin D levels. And that level is 30 nanograms per milliliter of blood. That's how much, your vitamin D level should be over this limit. Okay. Not enough vitamin D, you will tend to put on more weight. So if you lack sunlight, uh, that is a risk factor that is driving, the possible development of obesity within an individual. Another cause can be certain medications. Right, some medications can lead to weight gain. These medications include some antidepressants, right? Anti-seizure medications, some diabetes medications, some antipsychotic medications, steroids, beta blockers, prednisone, which is commonly described for asthma and inflammation and rheumatoid arthritis. As a matter of fact, prednisone is used in all autoimmune conditions. They almost always prescribe this dangerous drug, prednisone. Okay, so your medication can be causing you to be putting on weight, excessive weight, to the point of developing obesity. And I think, that side effect of diabetes medication is so nefarious because being overweight puts you at risk of diabetes, and then you turn, when you develop diabetes and you start taking the drugs to manage that condition, it causes you to get even fatter, making your diabetes even worse, So, no wonder we are told not to turn to poisonous drug medications if we find ourselves, because of our disobedience to the 8 laws of health, developing any of these diseases, why we're told not to depend upon drugs. Okay? Another cause is that your genes can be influencing your weight gain. So your genetics may affect the amount of body fat that you are able to store and where that fat is distributed. Genetics may also play a role in how efficiently your body converts food into energy and how your body burns calories during exercise. Even when someone has a genetic predisposition, environmental factors ultimately make you gain more weight. So that is the interaction between your genes, lifestyle, and environment. But that is not to say that if you're genetically predisposed to weight gain, that doesn't mean that you are going to be fat or that you are going to be obese. You have to remember that genes, they may load the gun, but it's lifestyle that pulls the trigger. So don't want anybody to have the excuse, well, I come from a fat family, therefore I must be fat. Lies. No, don't go so, right? You have the ability through the 8 laws of health to maintain your weight within a healthy range. Families can change their genes, but they can change the family environment to encourage healthy eating habits and physical activity. Just as I was just saying a while ago, genes, genetics, load the gun, but it is your actions, your lifestyle, what you do, the environment that you foster that pulls the trigger. Another cause is inactivity, right? Which is rising to epidemic proportions in this modern world. So many of our jobs are now sedentary, right? So many of us are living sedentary lifestyles. If you're not very active, you don't burn as many calories. With a sedentary lifestyle, you can easily take in more calories than you need. Physical inactivity can lead to obesity, whereas physical activity can help you control the weight. So no physical activity, your muscles are not coming into action, especially those large muscles of the body that burns calories, you know. And not only that, the amount of physical activity that you have can impact how efficient you're able to use these calories, right? So when you are sedentary and you're eating up a bunch of food, it's very easy for that formula to become skewed, where you're now taking in a whole lot more calories than you actually need. And then the balance, the excess calories is now starting to be stored as fat. So inactivity, big risk factor. So the biggest risk factor is really, or should I say the biggest cause really, is an unhealthy diet and eating habits. This is, I would say, takes up the biggest portion of that pie of causes, right? A diet that is high in calories, right? High in carbohydrates, especially those refined carbohydrates, those processed foods, right? Eating fast food, that's junk food. A better name could never have been found for that type of food. Junk, it is literally junk food. All right. Burger King is a junkyard. Skipping breakfast, eating most of your calories at night, drinking high caloric beverages, those are your sodas and your drinks, eating oversized portions. I notice that is in bold. Eating too much all contribute to weight gain, right? But enough can't be said about the risk of the amount of sugar that's in our diet. We only need a teaspoon of sugar really in our diet each day, and we don't necessarily need to get it in the refined form from our food intake. Your body will produce that sugar from those complex carbohydrates that you eat, right? But we have most adults in the Western world are consuming 3 to 5 um teaspoons of sugar a day when your body only need one. So what your body going to do with that 4 extra teaspoons of sugar? You have to find somewhere to go, and it's going to be packed on as weight around you. Another cause for weight gain is pregnancy. During pregnancy, a woman's weight necessarily increases. This weight gain may contribute to the development of obesity in women. And we understand that also, but this is not necessarily so. Even when you're pregnant, if you follow the 8 laws of health, you don't have to worry about this excessive weight gain. If you're eating a plant-based vegan diet in its proper portions and balancing, you won't have this issue at all. So pregnancy, while it can be a cause, it doesn't have to be. Obey the 8 laws of health and you'll be just fine. There are also development factors that can cause disease, and they're talking about development um as as you as a child, you know, child development, meaning that growing from, the stages of babyhood to being a toddler to being a kindergartner coming right up, right? And what are some of these factors, risk factors? Compared to breastfeeding, bottle feeding, regardless of formula type, increase the risk of excessive weight gain during the first year of life. Breast is best, right? That is the truth. Breast milk is the best food for our young ones, because that is the food that was ordained of God to give to them. Breast milk is balanced in all the various food groups that are necessary for the proper development of a child. Some of these formulas, obesity, but even type 1 diabetes, that alien protein that they take from cow's milk and put in baby's milk can actually lead to the destruction of the insulin producing cells in the pancreas, right? It's milk protein and treat it as alien and mount an immune response that can possibly damage the pancreas of a child. And then when they get a little bit older on 8, 9, 10, all of a sudden, type 1 diabetes. You can link it all the way back to the use of these formulas given to them as a child. So we need to be very careful, in using these artificial things that we give to our children. Could be increasing their risk factor for not only type 1 diabetes, but also obesity. So remember that mothers, breast is best. Another cause is bisphenol A, which is found in bottles and aluminum cans and other types of packaging. And what you'll find is that that is what sodas come in, right? Not only the aluminum, but also the plastics, right? This chemical can leach from out of these containers into the drink or the food, and then you consume it. And what they've found is that kids and teens that had a higher level of this chemical, bisphenol A, in their urine were more likely to be overweight or obese, right? BPA, which is another chemical found in plastic, is also a type of synthetic estrogen that can cause body weight in adulthood, right? This is why they tell you that if you have a plastic bottle that's been in the sun, don't drink whatever has been, whatever was contained in the bottle, right? Because the sunlight would activate the leaching of chemicals out of the plastic into whatever is stored in that plastic. It would only accelerate it. You can stop it even if you keep it in the fridge. Some amount of leaching is going on. It's best if we use glass bottles to store food and beverages. Better to leave the aluminum tins and the plastic bottles alone. Another cause can be medical problems, too much or too little hormonal imbalance, that balance between testosterone, estrogen. you know that the thyroid is what really helps to balance out the endocrine system. You know, if you have PCOS, all of those things can affect your weight, right? So hormone imbalance is a major contributing factor to obesity and being overweight, right? And again, this is another example of that negative in terms of consequences, positive feedback loop, meaning that it builds on itself. You know, having a bad diet, bad lifestyle can cause that insulin resistance that drives that metabolic syndrome that causes PCOS. And then that PCOS can turn around and cause hormonal imbalances that further drives that weight gain and that risk of obesity. And the cycle just goes on and on and on, feeding back into itself unless you break that cycle by being obedient or becoming obedient to the 8 laws of health. You see, friends, you see the importance of obeying every single law that we are given. Another one, because thyroid dysfunction, right? Thyroid is that butterfly gland around the throat that regulates it produces hormones that regulates the endocrine system of your body. And the endocrine system of body is basically your hormones, you know, that regulates just about every process that goes on inside. Weight gain occurs when people take in more calories than they burn. So it's not just a matter of what people eat, it's also a matter of how much they are burning, how active they are, how much energy your body uses up, you know, in the support of life processes and life activities, and how efficiently it uses that energy. All that feeds back into whether or not you are, you know, gaining weight at a unhealthy rate, right? Thyroid hormones controls your body's metabolism, regulating everything from weight regulation, body temperature, and heart rate to glucose consumption and cholesterol levels. That little organ, that little gland, that thyroid gland is so important. It is a master controller in the body. So once it goes out of whack, everything else goes out of whack, including your weight regulation and your glucose consumption. So once it goes out of whack, it can have a negative effect on your body weight, causing you to become overweight and put you at risk of becoming obese. Difficulty losing weight can be a sign of hypothyroidism, right? That is when your thyroid is underproducing the regulating hormones, right? You may be losing weight while eating the same amount of food as usual, or even losing while eating more than normal. Unexplained weight changes and issues can be signs of both hypothyroidism or underactivity of the thyroid gland, or hyperthyroidism, which is the overactivity of the thyroid gland. Another cause of obesity and excessive weight gain is high levels of cortisol. That is the stress hormone, right? That's a hormone that you release when you are under stress. And this causes also linked to lack of sleep, because when you don't get enough sleep, the body has a stress response and releases cortisol. All right. Cushing's syndrome is an endocrine disorder that can cause weight gain, often quite rapidly. It stems from high levels of cortisol in the blood and is characterized by abnormal fat deposits, frequently in the form of a hump between the shoulders, or a rounded or moon face, or pink or purple stretch marks. Extra weight usually settles around the midsection and upper back. Lack of sleep can increase cortisol levels. All right. So very high levels of cortisol is another big causative agent in being overweight and heightens your risk of obesity. Okay. And yeah, you ever see some people and they're fat, but they have this hump, they have this characteristic hump right behind, their neck, but it's not really on their neck. It is more like between the shoulder blades. And they have this big fat hump, high levels of cortisol, driving Cushing's syndrome. All right. Another big cause, diabetes. Polyphagian diabetes can make you feel hungry and cause you to overeat. So that diabetic hunger can really drive you to overeating, which feeds back into the issue of being overweight and the risk of becoming obese. Another cause, artificial sweeteners. Consuming artificial sweeteners like sucralose, aspartame, saccharin, the body loses its ability to process real sugar, which could result in weight gain. So leave these artificial sweeteners alone. Just leave them alone. All right. With real sugar, messages are released to the brain and the gullet via hormones that regulate digestion and intake of food. Blood sugar levels and even perception of fullness and satisfaction from the food consumed, right? And we already spoke about that perception of fullness and satisfaction, which is the influence of the hormone leptin, okay? So without real sugar in your food, these hormones cannot be properly released to do their regulating work. All right. So just leave those artificial sweeteners alone. And recent research has found that these artificial sweeteners are linked to the risk of developing certain kinds of cancer on a side note. So just leave it alone. All right. However, with no actual calories to process with artificial sweeteners, the body doesn't know how to react. It throws the body into confusion. His body's just like, what's going on here? What is this stuff? What do I do? Confusion in the body. You have messed up the whole system. So when you consume real sugar, your body doesn't know if it should try to process it because it's been tricked by the fake sugar so many times. This is what the research has shown. The end result is that the body's metabolic system stops reacting to real sugars and doesn't release the hormones that say, that was delicious, I'm full. This can cause an endless cycle of feeling hungry and wanting more sugar. People who regularly drink diet soda have a high risk of weight gain, obesity, and type 2 diabetes and heart disease. All right, are you guys seeing my screen now? Is my screen back? Michelle, can you confirm my screen, please?
Yes, I
Loud
can
and
see
clear,
you. Go
right?
ahead.
It's back up. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Hang on 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. Another cause is feelings of guilt. If you are feeling angry, anxious, depressed, grieved, or guilty, you may be turning to food to ease those feelings without even realizing it. The psychologists call it eating your feelings. All right. If you have any of these negative emotions, food helps you to release endorphins, the feel good hormone, and you could be turning to food as a source of comfort to deal with these negative emotions without even realizing it. Also, excessive guilt has a similar effect on the brain as depression, bringing down not only our mood and spirits, but guess what it does? It also slows our digestive system as well. You have to remember that there is a link between the mind and the body, and it's a two-way link. Whatever affects the mind affects the body. Whatever affects the body affects the mind. So if you're not in a good place mentally and you eat your food, Dr. Lamley has a way of saying that it can become toxic to you. How does your mentality can make your food become toxic? It slows down the digestive process, which increases the risk of what? Fermentation, right? And fermentation produces alcohol in the system, poisoning you, right? So your mind can literally cause your food to become injurious to your health rather than to build up the body and sustain health. Feeling guilty about overindulging or eating the wrong food can cause us to sneak food, many times leading to our overeating. All right. So again, that negative, positive feedback loop going on right there. Lack of oxygen, not getting enough fresh air, proper breathing. That can be a cause driving, you know, obesity, driving your risk of developing obesity and causing you to become overweight. How? Since oxygen is needed in essentially all of our metabolic processes, including burning fat, without proper levels of oxygen, these metabolic processes slow down or get halted altogether, seriously compromising your health and stopping your weight loss and fitness progress dead in its tracks, right? And I would link this again to, lack of exercise and a sedentary lifestyle, especially those of you who sit at an office desk, hunched over, compressing up the diaphragm, not allowing the diaphragm to fully expand down, bringing down the lungs and properly filling them with air, shallow breathing, and all these things, not getting those deep breaths of fresh air in the morning, not getting well oxygenated blood through the use of exercise. All these links back and increases your risk of developing obesity or can cause excessive weight gain. Gluten is another driving factor in excessive weight gain and obesity. Um, Gil Gelatin-derived opiates, an appetite stimulator found in all gluten foods such as bread, pastries, and pasta, can increase the appetite for food. Imagine that. All right. So we need to be very careful with our use of gluten. Another cause is wheat. Modern wheat is loaded with amylopectin A, right, which is a starch that is unique to wheat, which is worse than table sugar. What does that mean? Now, if I had a slice of bread in front of you and I had a tablespoon of sugar, and I would ask you which one is going to be more detrimental to your health in terms of, you know, how your body reacts to it, in terms of how it processes that sugar, right? Most people would think that the tablespoon of sugar is worse, when in truth and in fact, that slice of brown bread could be worse because Satan has, through the greedy corporations, messed with the wheat, right? Messing around with its genetic structure. It has caused this particular type of, I'm trying to remember what component this is. It's not gluten. The name is on the tip of my tongue. Just put it as this particular component of wheat, amylopectin weight, to have a very high glycemic index. This will pump up your blood sugar levels unbelievably high, worse than anything that sugar could ever do to you. That is that, that GMO wheat, right? And all of that massive release can cause your weight to go up, right? Too much calories contribute to weight gain, and that is basically the effect that the amylopectin A has on the body, right? As I said, it is extremely high on the glycemic index, much higher than that of sugar, henceforth its effect on weight gain. Now, states three common factors among overweight individuals. What are some of the habits that they practice that contribute to them being overweight and contribute to their higher risk factor of becoming obese? One, they like to skip breakfast. They don't like to eat breakfast. Most of the times, that's because they're already gone and going to their bed late and can't wake up early. And they wake up well late, well after breakfast time, and they say, no, I had something to eat at lunch. They take very big bites of food and they eat too fast. And that's when they have a direct impact on your digestion, because digestion begins in the mouth, right? First, by the mechanical action of chewing, breaking down the food, and the release of saliva that has various enzymes, primarily amylase, to break down the starches in the food, right? So when you eat too fast and just cut and swallow, all of that first two stages of digestion is missed, and it has its impacts downstream. They don't drink enough water. As a matter of fact, they tend to like to drink a lot of juice and drinks and sodas. They get little, if any, exercise. They use salt freely, right? And salt can help with that weight gain in terms of water weight, because salt tends to make the body want to retain fluid. All right. They tend to like caffeinated drinks. They love the stimulation. They are a nibbler. They're constantly eating, 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 eating. They are like they're rumanoids. They are constantly chewing their cud. Always have to have something eating, always having a snack. You can't see them ever and they're not eating. The stomach can't get a break. They also eat mostly refined foods. That's the white bread, the white rice, the white pasta, the juices, the candies, the ice creams, and the list goes on and on and on and on. All of these foods, all of these habits contributing to their risk factors for obesity and excessive weight gain. So now let's look at 3 steps to a healthy weight. What can I do if I am overweight or worse yet, obese? Remember now the facet method. And this is the method that we practice as medical missionaries, right? Always look for the cause of the problem, work intelligently to remove that cause. Then we're going to unplug the kitchen sink, we're going to cleanse the body, and then we're going to be using the mops, now the herbs, to help, clean up that mess. How do you turn off the faucet? Diet. Change your eating habits and lifestyle permanently. So we don't believe in any fad diet where, we went to say, okay, just try this for 3 months and then if you want, you can go back. No, we are advocating for a permanent change in your dietary habits, a permanent change in your eating habits and lifestyle. Need to make sure, for example, that each morning you jumpstart your day with a healthy breakfast. No medical missionary, no remnant believer of God's church should be skipping breakfast. It's a very unhealthy habit. Many other implications. One of them being, again, your weight gain, even obesity. So make sure you have a healthy, balanced breakfast. Make sure you have those fruits, those complex carbohydrates, you know, your protein and your healthy fats. Now, what does breakfast do to us? It boosts our energy for the day. It will increase our attention span and help you to actually lose weight, or I should say to maintain a proper body weight, right? Every morning, brain neuropeptide sets off carbohydrate cravings for food. Skipping breakfast causes this neuropeptide, why? To hang around telling you to eat, 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 eat. So, in other words, skipping that breakfast can cause you to have excessive hunger and tend to make you want to overeat. Now, what should you be eating? You should be eating mainly unprocessed whole plant foods. All right. So that is your complex carbohydrate. That is your beans, your peas, your vegetables, your fruits, your nuts, your seeds, your grains, all of it unprocessed. We don't need the white rice and the white bread or the white anything. If it's white, it is more than likely not right. You need to be eating that 3 to 5 servings of fruit and vegetables daily. Okay, you need to make sure you're having, remember, every meal that you eat, half of your meal by weight or by quantity should be fruit or vegetable. All right. And in Jamaica, we tend to have that formula mixed up. May have a little piece of fruit, if you're lucky, or a little spoonful of vegetable, and then you have this mountain of rice and this other mountain of protein, and then we eat. Not balanced. Half should be the fruit or the vegetable, the quarter, the protein, and the complex carbohydrates. And then you finish up with a handful of nuts. Need to have more fiber in our diet, right? So we need to use the brown rice. We tend to more recommend, because of all the problems with wheat, it's better to have that wheat-free, gluten-free bread, right? And even if you're eating bread, excuse me, right? So even if you're eating bread, you have to be careful of that freshly baked bread, because the yeast can still be alive up to 48 hours that have passed. And if eaten when newly baked, the yeast germ continues to be active in the stomach, causing bloatedness of the stomach. Therefore, use bread that is at least 2 days old. Now, the thing is that the action of the yeast um, germ, or the yeast fungus that is used to cause to make the bread rise, its action on the carbohydrates that produce that CO2 gas that causes that bubbles, you'll see those bubbles that you see in the bread that causes it to expand and become light. That's caused by the release of the gas carbon dioxide, CO2. And that gas comes from the reaction of the yeast on the carbohydrates in the bread, or the sugars in the bread. It produces that carbon dioxide gas, but it also produces as a byproduct alcohol. Yeah, like alcohol in the rum that you drink, alcohol that is in beer, alcohol that is in liquor. That is one of the byproducts, in addition to the gases that causes the bread to rise. And it also takes 2 or so days for the alcohol that was produced in the raising of the bread to evaporate out of the bread. All right. So that's another reason why we don't eat fresh bread. We have to make sure that the yeast have died and all the alcohol that was produced by it in the process of producing that bread, raising that bread, has evaporated out. All right. So don't eat fresh bread. But the point is, we need a lot more fiber in our diet if we are to maintain a healthy weight. Instead of using the artificial sweeteners, it is best to use the natural sweeteners. That is your honey, your banana, your raisins, your dates, and even figs. All of these can be used as sweeteners in our foods. We also need to eat foods that increases our healthy thyroid function, right? And we do that by eating food that contain iodine. Iodine is a very important element to the proper functioning of the thyroid, and it can be found in sea salt with iodine, for example, or pink salt with iodine with other, 84 other trace elements. We can find iodine in kelp and like seaweed and those kind of things, right? So we need to make sure that those things are included in our diet. Now, the thyroid, as we said earlier, regulates the hormones and the metabolism of the body through the endocrine system. The thyroid and prostate requires iodine for proper functioning. So we need to make sure we eat the foods that help to sustain the proper functioning of these most important organs, the thyroid and the prostate. We need to drink a sufficient supply of water each day. When we go to the bathroom to urinate, our urine should be pale yellow to clear. We don't want any concentrated looking orange looking juice, right? Need to be pale yellow to clear. If your pee is dark yellow orange, you're suffering from severe dehydration. Your body will not be able to regulate the various metabolic functions that only can take place in water. So you need to be drinking 16 to 32 ounces of warm water each morning, one of which should be lemon water. So we need to have that tablespoon to 2 tablespoons of lemon juice in the first 8 ounces of water, and you drink that warm as in body temperature warm, not warm as in hot tea. You should be able to drink it down directly. And room temperature is not warm. Room temperature is cold to the human body. All right. So you need to be warm as in up to body temperature with a little, with a few minutes of heat if necessary. Okay. Others want to drink water, one mouthful at a time, as the cells will absorb and be properly hydrated. Right? If you wait until you're thirsty and you're drinking down a half a bottle of water, most of that is just going to pass right through the system that you want the cells to be able to take up the water that you drink. And to do that, you have to regulate how you're drinking water. You can't overhydrate where you are drinking more than the cellular absorption rate of the water. So you just take a mouthful at a time. Every 15, 20 minutes to half hour, you keep on drinking consistently a mouthful of water, a few sips of water throughout the day. And that water should be at room temperature, not cold water. Cold water, excessive heat or excessive cold in our beverages or foods damages the stomach, its lining and its proper functioning. So you don't want to be drinking any cold water. So you drink it at room temperature. Unfortunately, these days, because of the excessive heat, and I would want to say the unnaturally excessive heat, I think it is allowable to just cool that water a little bit, right? Because sometimes when you're drinking the water just straight, it is like hot water you're drinking and you're so hot. So it's permissible to just cool that water just a little bit by mixing it. All right, but definitely do not drink your water cold. Do not eat and drink at the same time. Liquid diets take longer to digest. Why? The liquid will literally dilute the acid in your stomach, impairing its action upon the food. All right. So you need to, don't drink and eat. It's damaging to the digestive process, right? Uh, that can lead to bloating of the stomach because of indigestion and also the fermentation of food and releases of gases into the system. Drink water 15 to 30 minutes before a meal and 2 hours after a meal. All right, so be careful about when we drink water, right? Follow those stipulations, 15 to 20 to 30 minutes before a meal and after 2 hours after you have eaten. then you can go ahead and be resume drinking water. So the type of foods that we need to increase to help us manage our weight or to lose weight, you have to eat foods that are low in calories, low in fat, low in sodium, but very high in fiber and high in satiety, meaning that foods that contribute to that feeling of fullness, which is done best by natural foods. Processed foods tend to not give you that, feeling of, yeah, I'm full, I am now satiated, right? That's why you can't eat down 2 pizzas one time and you're still hungry, right? So eat that plant-based whole foods that contribute to that feeling of satisfaction and having had enough to eat. So we need to increase our intake of grains, legumes, pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, wheat germ, pine nut, Brazil nut, soya bean, pecans, sesame seeds, oats, chickpea, blackstrap molasses, avocado pears, to make sure that we're getting our chromium, magnesium, niacin, which is vitamin B3, and other vitamin groups. All these can be found in these various foods that I just listed, and you can see on your screen. Continuing on, turn up the faucet. It's good to have up to 2 tablespoons of freshly ground flaxseed daily, right? And it might be hard to do that portioning, but if you have ground too much, you can store it in the fridge for up to 3 days before it starts to go rancid. But best to get it freshly ground each day. You take 2 tablespoons and you can sprinkle it over your meal. To increase are the chard, the seaweed, the spirulina, the pineapple, the sweet potato, the broccoli, the cherry, the cabbage, the onion, the garlic. All these food groups need to be increased, and the list goes on. Basically your fruits and your vegetables go a very long way when it comes to maintaining a healthy weight and reversing obesity. All right, so your lettuce, your carrots, your peach, your turnip, your cucumber, your sweet pepper, your grapefruit, and the list goes on. Obesity is normally linked to a very high sugar and salt intake, which causes the retention of water in the body. So you need to make sure that we increase the diuretic foods. Diuretic just means that they tend to remove excess water from the body. And the diuretic foods are artichoke, celery, eggplant, borage, I never heard this one before, cauliflower, asparagus, green bean, apple, peach, melon, pear, watermelon, and grape. All of these are diuretic foods, right? Help to get the excess water out of the body. Eliminate refined foods, oils, butters, and dressing. So eliminate, the ketchup, the mustard, the vegetable oil, the anchor butter. I can't believe it's not butter. All these things, the cheese, the fast foods, the breads, the white breads, and all these fancy type of foods, these rich foods that we already know are unhealthy. I don't need to go through the entire gamut of these foods. We all know what they are. We just need to leave them alone and return to Eden's plan, right? Eden's menu, the natural food that God gave us out of the ground. Reason why we need to avoid these highly processed foods is that they have a lot of simple sugars, right? Which is, those refined flours and sugars, which causes an increase in the level of insulin in our bloodstream, which burns up sugars but stores fat in the body. All right. So when you eat these simple sugars, the way how God designed things to work is that for the sugar to get from our foods into our blood, it would have to go through processing. That sugar would have been wound up and pressed down and compressed down into what we call a complex carbohydrate. And then your body will slowly break it up and pull it apart through the process of digestion. And then when it is broken down from a complex carbohydrate to a simple sugar, which is the form which your body can use, it would be releasing slowly because the body would have to work to break it down and slowly release it versus when you eat it already simple, all that sugar now just rushes out straight into the bloodstream. The body don't have to work to release it. It's already in its free form. And when you eat these refined foods, that sugar is literally a sugar rush. Because that is exactly what it is, a sugar rush. It does bomb rush the system, blow up in your system, run straight into your blood. Your pancreas have to activate right away and start releasing massive, humongous amounts of insulin to try and get the sugar rush under control, right? So that's why you feel so energetic now, because the cells are being forced open to take up the sugars. But guess what? It's not sustained, and right afterwards you experience that crash, that low, right? And all that excess that wasn't burned up by the cells under the influence of insulin, they now go into the adipose tissues, the fat cells, start to grow those fat cells. All right, so stay away from the simple sugars, and you find them in your baked foods and your snacks, those refined cookies and breads and all those kind of things and buns. Just leave them alone. Okay, especially if you're already overweight or if you are obese. All these things will need to be cut out of your diet. In addition to the refined foods and the refined sugars, you have to eliminate all the animal foods, the animal fats and oils, which increase insulin and stores fat in the body. You need to remove the milk, the cheese, the oil, the eggs, the sausage, the lard, the margarine, all of those will need to be removed from the food, from your, food intake, from your menu. We need to also learn to avoid cooking our food in grease, right? Saute instead with a little water in a non-stick frying pan. And if necessary, you can just use a drop of oil, and that will not be vegetable oil. That will be one of your, cold pressed oils, unprocessed oils like coconut oil. Just put enough to slightly, ever so slightly, grease the bottom of the pan if you don't have a non-stick frying pan, and then use water to saute your seasonings or whatever, right? Just a little fact here. Fried potatoes have 3 to 5 times more calories than boiled potatoes. Why is that? Because of the oil now. The fries now soak up the oil, and we know that fat is a very dense caloric food, very high amounts of calories, even in a little bit of fats, which is what an oil is. An oil is a liquid fat. All right. So when the fries soak up all that oil, compared by mass to a similar amount of boiled potato, 5 to 7 times more calories because of the oil. Now, the scoop on fat, as I just said, it's a concentrated source of calories. It's 7 times more easily stored. A low-fat diet helps to control appetite. Why? Remember that leptin is released by the fat cells. All right. Certain essential fatty acids help to burn fats. Some fats help us to control our hunger. Now, what are the good fats? The good fats are essential fatty acids that are found in toasted flaxseed, and we didn't say roasted nuts or toasted nuts, just a toasted flaxseed, right? Or nuts and our olives, and those nuts need to be raw. Do not eat the roasted nuts, right? It damages the fatty acids, cause them to go rancid, and cause them to do harm more than good to our bodies. So when we're eating our nuts, make sure we're eating the raw nuts. Soybeans and spinach, all these provide the body with the good fats, which provides the essential fatty acids. The good fats are known as the monounsaturated fats. Find these again in our olives or various nuts, and almonds, hazelnuts, macadamia nuts, pecans, avocados, and indeed all the nuts. Now, in continuing with turning off the carbs, turn off the faucet, need to remove wheat and gluten from the diet. Use wheat-free, gluten-free flours instead. Breads must be eaten at least 48 hours. Prepare whole grains properly. which how do you properly prepare your whole grains for human consumption? They need to be cooked for at least 3 hours. So that is your rice, your cornmeal, your oats, whatever the grain is. You put them in your oven, put it on the lowest heat for at least 3 hours so that they will become fit for human consumption, because that will break down some harmful compounds that can be found in them that will not be doing our bodies well, such as phytic acid, which blocks, proper nutrient absorption when digestion has taken place. So to drive out those type of chemicals, we need to properly prepare our grains, cooking them for at least 3 hours. Have a healthy menu plan that consists of the diet that God has given us, which is our grains, fruits, nuts, and vegetables. A sample menu is here before you, right? You need to have in your starch, your protein, can have even your steamed fruit. So when you have half the plate, consists of that raw salad, right? The next quarter is gonna be some form of carbohydrate, right? And next quarter will be your protein. And at the end of your meal, you close your meal by having a closed handful of nuts. How do you unplug the kitchen sink now, right? First thing first, you need to break that snack habit. You only eat at your meal time, and at no other time do you eat except your meal times. So break the snack habit. The calories you get from snacking can add to up to an extra meal. One study showed that Western women tend to snack 400 to 500 calories per day. At the rate of 500 calories per day, 7 days a week, totaling 3,500 calories. That means it's possible to gain an extra pound a week on snacks alone. Did you know that? Just snacking alone can help you to pack on those pounds. But also snacking your food will also lead to not only indigestion, but it interrupts the process of digestion, because the digestion will have to stop and prepare to now take in the new food that you're eating. And then the process will have to start all the way back over again, right? So the food that was in your stomach originally now will have to sit and wait for the new food to be digested. Guess what happens? Fermentation, which destroys health and contributes to weight gain. Now, let us look at some studies that were done, for what happened when people snack. And this is empirical evidence, statistical evidence that speaks to the fact that snacking destroys digestion. Now, person one, they had a normal breakfast. 2 hours later, they had no snack. And the result was that their stomach was completely empty in about 4.5 hours. Person number two had their breakfast, and 2 hours later, they had an ice cream cone, right? And what they found out that even up to 6 hours later, there was still residue in the body. And actually, I know this study, it has been updated, right? Because ice cream is one of the most toxic things that you can eat. We are told in even the spirit of prophecy that we ought not to mix cream and sugar, because dairy slows down digestion and sugar slows down digestion. And when you combine them, you get a super effect of nullifying the process of digestion. So that ice cream cone can go for even up to 9 and more hours now that they have found out. Okay. Person number three had a peanut butter sandwich 2 hours after their meal. They were able to find residue in the stomach 9 hours later. So imagine you had eaten some tomatoes and maybe some melon, or I don't know, some fruits or whatever you ate for breakfast, and 9 hours later in the stomach, it's still not digested. What do you think has taken place? What happens when you leave food on your counter for 9 hours straight? Huh? Same exact thing happens in the body. Person number four had pumpkin pie and a glass of milk 2 hours after their meal. Residue was still found 9 hours in their stomach after. Person number five, they just had half a slice of bread and butter repeatedly every 1.5 hour interval and no dinner. More than half of their breakfast was still found to be in the stomach after 9 hours. Person number 6, they snack twice in the morning and twice in the afternoon with a bit of chocolate candy. Look at that. Again, that mixture of sugar and cream, sugar and dairy in the chocolate candy. 13.5 hours later, more than one half of the morning meal was still found in the stomach. Can you imagine the amount of fermentation that has taken place right there? That meal is now fully toxic. So what do we do? Remember now we're unplugging the kitchen sink, right? We have to make sure we remove all, toxic sources from the body. We have to cleanse the body. We have to make sure that that meal is, being digested and processed and eliminated out through the organ of elimination, not staying back and becoming toxic and poisoning the entire system. How do we do that? We eat at set meal times, and at no other times do we eat. So it's like a training the body. The body will know that at this time food is coming. All of the digestive juices and the enzymes and the acid will be stored and prepared. The body will be primed to efficiently digest and absorb that meal and put it away in short order so that it can build good blood, right? But you do that by discipline and training the body to eat at set meal times. Specify a time for each meal. Eat all that the system requires at that time and no more. Then you're going to rest the stomach for at least 5 hours. We are told that the stomach is the most abused organ in the body. Drink only water and only water in between meals. And coconut water is not water. Coconut water is a full meal. So no, coconut water is not allowed. Only drink agua, H2O, crystal punch, original water in between your meals. Not a particle of food should be introduced into the stomach till the next meal, not even a nut, right? 2 meals are better than 3, and eat no later than 6:30 p.m. As a matter of fact, when you go into your bed, you need to ensure that your stomach is empty. Third meal. There are some people who feel like they must eat a third meal. So if you feel that you must eat at night, take a drink of cold water, and in the morning you will feel much better for not having eaten. That's what we are counseled in the book, Counsels on Diet and Food. You will prevent the bulge, that's the bulge of the stomach, and you would relish your breakfast much more. So best not to eat at night, but if you feel you have to eat, just drink a cup of very cold water. This is the only time you're permitted to drink the cold water, because it will just cramp the stomach and just destroy that desire to go and eat something. It will help you to control that nudge to go eat, okay? Walk out of overweight. I like that one. So you got to exercise. Activity speeds up the body metabolic rate, burns calories faster and more efficiently. The safest and best exercise is walking. Walking is the king of exercises. How do you do that? You walk for 1 continual hour daily, and it's not a leisurely stroll, but it is a brisk, energetic walk. You're swinging the arms and legs. You're pumping the arms and the legs. All right. Early morning burns predominantly fat, especially if you exercise before breakfast. All right. I'm going to be talking more about that soon. Brisk walking, that's the type of walking you do. It reduces stress, and you can do a bit of light weightlifting. Very light weightlifting is possible also. And the type of walking we recommend you do the intermittent hits, high intensity intermittent training, where you walk as at at your top speed, top push-ups maybe 10 minutes or so. And after that 10 minutes, you slow down and you go to a slower, easier pace for another 3 minutes or so. And then you go back up high and you come back down. And we're going to be explaining the effect that that has on breaking insulin resistance. The specific type of exercise helps to break the back of insulin resistance and metabolic syndrome. Now, you need to also discipline yourself to do that digestive walk for 15 to 30 minutes after each meal. All right. So after each meal, you're going to get up and you're going to do a light walk. This is not going to be your brisk walking. This is not your. Okay, I think I just lost my internet again. What was the last thing you guys heard me say? Let me just get this back up on the screen. What was the last thing you heard me say before I got cut off? Michelle, are you there? Okay, let me just back up a little bit then. I'm not sure where the last thing you heard me say was, but so the digestive walking is to be done right after each and every meal. And this is a very light walk. It's not a heavy duty walk like when you are exercising. Um, Another thing you need to do is you need to be taking vitamin D supplementation, especially for those who have little sunlight, up to 2,000 international units per day. How much time does a person need to be outdoors to have an appropriate amount of vitamin D production for light-skinned individuals? It's going to be 15 to 30 minutes per day. For dark-skinned individuals, those who are of African heritage, who have that sunscreen, you need to be in the sun for 45 minutes to 1.5 hours each and every day. The times which you need to be in the sun is between the hours of 10 and 2 o'clock. Best time, 10 to 11, 1 to 2. You don't want that midday sun. That sun might be a little bit too, aggressive on the skin. But make sure you're getting that vitamin D production going by exposing the entire body to sunlight, cover the head, cover the limbs, cover the arms, cover the legs. You only need just the back of, like your face, the back of the neck, and the hands to be exposed to the sun. The sunlight will find its way into the body. Always be temperate. So dress properly when sunbathing. When's the best time to get the sunlight? Between 9 and 3 o'clock, as I said before, you know, but the sweet spot is 10 to 11, 1 to 2, when the UVB and A rays are at its highest. And those are the rays that are needed by the skin for the production of vitamin D. You need good sleep. Good sleep boosts proper metabolism function. Get 8 to 6 hours of sleep every night. Go to bed before 10 p.m. Every hour of sleep before 12 is worth 2. During the hours of 10 to 2 a.m., the brain does the most work, the most releasing of hormones, chemicals, melatonin, growth hormones, and the brain restores itself. And that is also when the body cleans the brain and repairs the body. Make the habit to go to bed and get up approximately the same time each day. So we have to have regularity in our eating, in our sleeping, and in our waking. All should be done at the same time each day. Avoid sitting for long periods and stand up often. Sit or stand up straight. Pull your shoulders back and give your rib cage and henceforth your diaphragm the space it needs to work properly, and inhale and exhale as much oxygen as it needs to. Standing and walking 10 minutes every hour can help in the treatment of obesity, diabetes, high cholesterol, and high triglycerides. Mopping it all up now. We're coming to the end and we need to be ending in the next less than 5 minutes. So let's hurry on. Mopping it all up. Herbal recommendation. The fruit of the tree is for man's food, and the leaves are for its medicine. That's what we're told in Ezekiel 47 and verse 12. Now, Gymnea sylvestre has been shown to reduce the ability to taste sweetness. One study found that people who took a dose of this herb had a diminished perception of sweetness, and when offered snack food, ate fewer calories. So we can use that Gymnea sylvestre to get the appetite under control. Gulgal. It's found to help the body metabolize fat, and it improves thyroid function by increasing that thyroid stimulating hormone level. All right, so we use gulgul also. Turmeric helps to reduce inflammation. Cumin helps to improve weight loss when mixed with the other herbs, such as what we had mentioned before. Coriander helps to increase the metabolic function of the body, therefore heightening weight loss. Ginseng aids in weight reduction and even slows weight gain resulting from diets high in fat, right? We also have the lecithin granules, right? This is helpful in dissolving fat, and we need to have 1 to 2 teaspoons daily. Pumpkin seed, and you're going to take these daily also unsalted and unroasted. Gardenase, 2 tablets twice daily with each meal. Adding garlic to your food in fresh or powdered form helps the metabolism of carbohydrates and fats more efficiently. If you don't have the gardenase, you can use up to 4 cloves of garlic daily in your food. And if you're in a chronic situation, then 2 to 4 cloves 2 times daily in the blood. Now, if you're on blood thinning medication, you have to be careful with the garlic because it's a known natural blood thinner. Peppermint, the smell of peppermint can help to decrease appetite, causing individuals to eat less. You have the grapevine, you have the cherry tree, and of course, you have the lemon water. Half a lemon or 1 tablespoon of lemon juice to 8 ounces of warm water each morning. Eating onion up to 1 bulb daily can also help in maintenance of the body weight and regulation of appetite. Other herbs which help in weight loss, you have the ginger, you have the park, and you also have the milk thistle and the dandelion. All these help. All these herbs help in this regard. We also have the burdock root, which is a blood purifier, helps to detoxify the blood and the lymphatic system. It also improves fat metabolism and it acts as a diuretic. Red clover helps us to remove cellulite, which is a highly toxic fat. Anybody see having cellulite, their system is toxic. It removes toxins from the body and the blood, right? And it will also help your body from gathering more toxins to your fat stores and aid in removing those that exist. Now, there's a weight reduction cleansing drink that you drink bi-weekly. And on the last day, you have the lemon juice, 1/4 cup with castor oil, 3 tablespoons, followed by drinking 8 ounces of warm water immediately, or senna tea, 2 tablespoons of senna in 2 cups of water. You steep that for 40 minutes and then you drink. This will act as a cleanser that helps out with your weight loss. An early morning drink, 2 to 4 cups of just warm water. And remember, you're going to have that with your 2 tablespoons of lemon juice in 8 ounces of warm water first, and then you have those 2 to 4 cups of warm water. Very powerful cleanse, weight loss reduction cleanse, right? Here it is, first rotation for the first week. Dandelion, 2 tablespoons. Red clover, 2 tablespoons. Gymnea sylvestre, also 2 tablespoons. And in the second week, you have a new rotation, same amounts, milk thistle, burdock, and cardamom. And what you're going to do is that you're going to boil the water, and all of these are not the hard parts of the plant, or even if it is the hard part, it is normally in powder form. So you're going to boil the water, right? And then you're going to throw in the herbs, steep it for 40 minutes, and you're going to drink it as your water thereafter, as a tea or as your water the next day. And it's just a matter of rotating between the various herbs for the various weeks in rotation. Each week, you're going to change the rotation, right? Week 3, dandelion, burdock, ginseng. Week 4, peppermint, red clover, turmeric. Week 5, dandelion, cumin, ginger. Week 6, parsley, red clover, coriander, right? And if you follow these guidelines, By God's grace, you'll be able to remove all excessive weight from the system, and you'll be able to reverse obesity and get rid of that disease by becoming, number one, obedient to God's 8 laws of health. You're going to practice the faucet method. You're going to turn off that tap with diet and lifestyle, unplug the kitchen sink, and then you're going to use the herbs which God has given us for the healing of the nation for all these things. But the important points I want you to note: remove all animal products from the diet, all processed foods, all sources of refined sugar and refined foods. Turn to a completely natural, whole plant-based whole diet, for lack of a better word. I got a little bit tongue twisted there, right? 2 meals are better than one. Exercise, intermittent, high intensity intermittent interval training, high intensity interval training, right? That is the right word. I've been trying to remember it in full. Best to do it in the mornings before you have breakfast. Be regular in your eating, sleeping, and your waking. Follow these simple rules and you will be just fine. Just sit back and watch the glory of God and watch healing as it arises in its wings. So we have come to the end of our presentation. I hope that it has been helpful. And may the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ be with us all. Thank you. Let us pray. Father in heaven, we are thankful for the time that we have been able to spend together. We are thankful for the information, even the health message that you have sent to your people to prepare us for the crisis of these last days. We will need to be in perfect health so our mind can communicate with you through the presence of the Holy Spirit. So, Lord, as we have listened, may we not be only hearers, but doers of the word. For we ask it all in Jesus' name with thanksgiving. Amen and amen.